So from the ramparts of the Red Fort, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given his fourth address to the nation on the occasion of Independence Day. He's touched upon several important topics, perhaps the most important, and perhaps the most important line that he said, resonating what was said earlier by Tilak, where he said that Swaraj is my birthright. He stressed on the fact that Swaraj is my birthright, and that is what he'd like to usher in India. And he also touched upon a variety of things, indicating that this is only just the beginning of the fight against corruption. And he also spoke at length about the various schemes which the government has brought in a bid to try and improve the life of the people in India. So this, of course, is the Independence Day celebration. Prime Minister Modi can, of course, be seen waving and acknowledging the thousands of people who've gathered at the Red Fort there, especially the students, because this, of course, is one of the biggest celebrations which the students across India are, of course, taking part. So Prime Minister Modi waving and acknowledging the thousands of people who've gathered in front of the Red Fort after having unfurled the national flag and then also having delivered his fourth speech. And this, of course, is a beautiful display which has been put out at the Red Fort, where several balloons of the tricolour along with kites have been flown. So the 21st century should belong to India. And he also spoke about the millennials who were born on 2000-2001. They will, of course, be completing 18 years. And he said that it is their opportunity to come forth and seize this great and wonderful opportunity of building the new India. He also stressed upon how the government was cracking down on corruption. He said that 3 lakh companies have been recognized as shell companies. The government is, of course, he said, trying to do everything that it can. There have been those things which have received recognition, and those are the things which have not perhaps been recognized enough in terms of the efforts which the government has put in. He also spoke about how terrorism will have to be dealt with, and he mentioned of how to solve the Kashmir issue as well. So a variety of issues touched upon by the Prime Minister, and this of course is the grand celebration, the Independence Day celebration that is taking place at the Red Fort. And also we are joined in our studios by our political affairs editor Kartikeya Sharma. Kartikeya, good morning to you. This was the fourth address by Prime Minister Modi. So let me begin by asking you, what do you think was the highlight of this address?
I think number of things, the domestic issues which, Prime Minister Narendra Modi raised. He raised the issue of, the problem, the vigilantes, I think that was an important takeaway. But the Prime Minister also chose to mention the issue of triple talaq. That is also very significant because that issue is sub judice, and, the court will very shortly pronounce a judgment. The orders have been reserved by the court, and for Prime Minister to talk about it again, I would say highlights the fact that that issue has not been given up post UP elections. So and for Prime Minister to come up with, for example, a lot of acronyms. So instead, Bharat Chodo, and he's saying the Bharat Jodo. So that too, I would say, is something something very new. And Prime Minister again, he touched upon issues like corruption, the better part of the demonetization process, the coffers of the government being full. The Prime Minister, he took up the issue of terrorism, or when he took up the issue of Kashmir, and he said, Nagali, Nagoli,
Gale lagane se. So the discourse of either abuse or bullet will not change. And I think that is very significant because the sort of discourse which has actually, I would say, crystallized in Kashmir is it just swings between a very harsh position, strong words and a language, to, I would say, literally the riots on the street or the stone pelting. So again, the word, the word, it's in Hindi, it's G. So Goli and Gali. He was but gale lagane se. It is embracing the people of Kashmir, which is actually going to solve the problem of Kashmir.
This is something very typical of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's not that the speeches aren't well researched. Just goes on to show that how every speech is a worked upon document, or to say that
that also shows as to how well he's able to communicate with the people of India, and we just now see Prime Minister Modi's cavalcade there, which is perhaps about to leave the Red Fort. And if I could also touch upon this, this is his fourth address from the ramparts of the Red Fort. Now in 2019 he will be due for election again. Do you think this was a speech that was given with his eyes firmly set on the 2019, or was this more a statesman-like speech that was given incorporating a lot of the factors?
I think it incorporated a lot of facts, but small thing, Prime Minister in his speech said, next year, those who are born,
yes,
the first, in this century,
in this century, the millennials, yes.
Yes, and he said they will be the Bharat,
the makers of the new
India.
Yes.
Bharat Bhagya Vidhata is part of our
national anthem.
Bhagya Vidhata. And Bhagya Vidhata, he has used it for the children born in this century. So, he's very mindful of a very young India.
And he's also meeting the young children, the students who have gathered there. And today is also the occasion of Krishna Janmashtami. So we see a lot of the children having been dressed up as young Gopalas, young Krishnas there, and this is the kind of connect and the kind of resonance which Prime Minister Modi has, which perhaps sets him apart, from some of the other leaders of this generation, where he's connecting with the youth, and that is perhaps the reason as to why he's also so successful.
Not only connecting with the youth, he worked upon certain things. For example, I remember as a child, after Indira Gandhi's assassination, do you remember Muhammad, Prime Ministers apart from Modi in past 25 years speaking from the Red Fort without a bulletproof glass?
That I can't remember. I mean, I remember the very first Prime Minister which I can remember, which I can think of is of Narasimha Rao, when I have seen him deliver his speeches from perhaps 92, 93. I was born in 85. So that is the first recollection of the Independence Day speeches which I've had. So this is a completely different kind of atmosphere altogether.
So when Modi became the Prime Minister, he did away with the bulletproof glass. You could see your Prime Minister. Red Fort had, and the speech had become a ritual under many prime ministers. There was a big security scare, and the reason why I'm saying this again and again is that before Modi, this was not allowed. You were not allowed to touch the Prime Minister. You see, these are not manufactured visuals. These are people there, these are children there. And this is a real security scare. You ask the SPG personnel, and he would say this is not really
absolutely. This is not something they can be trained upon at all.
Whether it is children, whether it is NSG or anyone. See, he's being pushed. You can't manufacture these visuals. The Prime Minister is being pushed because there are so many children. And generally, if you cover political rallies, we Indians have one very strange habit. We would like to touch our leader.
Yes.
Like abroad, people would like to handshake the leader or speak to the leader, or sort of a strong handshake. Hey, the idea is not for a shake, it's for a touch. For example, I've seen a lot of people, women, actually touching Sonia Gandhi's skin and checking as to how fair she is, This is very, very typical of us. And see, all the children, not one of them really wants to shake hand, Either they will, they'll get their picture clicked, or they want to touch the person, to see whether he's for real. So, the cultural, political interactions are very, very rooted. And again, as you very rightly pointed out, Mohammed, that, because today is Janmashtami, I can see, look at this kid, he jumps the queue. He's not part of the Gopalas or the Krishnas, but he came there.
Well, you can't stop the children there. No one can stop the children.
You can't stop the children. So, this was something which was absent for past 25, 30 years.
Absolutely.
And all these things were reintroduced by him. Indira Gandhi, at her time, would wear saris representing different parts of India. Now, for men, those options are limited. But then that option is available through turban, which in Hindi is called pagdi, which can be translated into honor, izzat. And it represents various parts of India. So, Modi, in his election campaign, used pagri or
and various form of headdresses wherever he went, he was
to connect with the people, and even on 15th August he uses it, and this is not a repetition of last year. Every year there is a new pagri. Now I want to know which part of the country does this pagri comes
this
from.
Style of pagri actually comes from.
And I'm 100% sure there will be a release by the Prime Minister's office on this. So I can't figure it out which part, but then it will not be a repetition. I checked it on the net. The 2014 was not repeated in 15. 15 was not repeated in 16. So this is a different one. So again, the other things, generally other prime ministers wouldn't sit in front. They would, barring Rajiv Gandhi,
protocol which they always
barring
follow.
Rajiv Gandhi, who on private occasions would drive his own car. After that, he is the second prime minister to sit in front, and that too, in a row. But generally, the other prime minister would sit in the back because Vajpayee had given in the tender.
No, is it
of
also
BMWs.
because of the way perhaps television has changed and now you have cameras all over, and sitting in the front also gives you greater visibility? This is something that we've seen a lot of the other leaders also who've now incorporated, who've started sitting in the front row, and this perhaps could be because of the television. But talking on the concrete terms, he gave this fantastic slogan, Suraj is my birthright, because in India he said that we have this this habit of chalta hai business, chalta hai ab nahi chalega. How important do you think that was a message which perhaps has been sent out to bureaucrats to actually work on the ground?
I think it's also because of the security. You see, Prime Minister is not taking a helicopter. Prime Minister will be travelling from Red Fort to his residence directly. So my understanding is that the two BMWs which they use, generally going to Parliament, tell you the car in which the Prime Minister is.
Right.
They have used 8 Range Rovers. They have used 8 Range Rovers. There are 12 cars. So I think this is like a security measure where when the cavalcade moves for 10 kilometers or 9 kilometers, you don't know in which car the Prime Minister is traveling.
Right.
I think that's the sense I get. Make of it, or else because it's not even mandatory for the Prime Minister to buckle up.
Correct. It is not.
It's not mandatory. Since the distance is long, and Prime Minister insists that he will travel by car, I think that's the reason why he has chosen to. That's the security protocol which is being put in place. But answering your question in terms of substantiveness, I think the substantive part is that his speech brings together economic development, sense of nationhood. And India at 70 is not old India at 70. He's talking. It
is definitely not an old India. It is a new India. It is an emerging India, and he spoke about
millennial India. He's talking about a young India. So it's like young at 70.
Young at 70. These are visuals that we got. We have of Prime Minister who just arrived at the Red Fort from a little while back. He spoke on a number of issues, and perhaps one of the things which will be keenly discussed about is what he spoke on Kashmir. Na gali se, na goli se, ye masla hal hoga gale lagane se. Let's dip in and listen to what Prime Minister Modi had to say on the Kashmir issue.
बहनों, मैं साफ मानता हूं कि कश्मीर में जो कुछ भी घटनाएं घटती हैं, अलगाववादी, मुट्ठी भर अलगाववादी, ये अलगाववादी जिस प्रकार के नए नए पैंतरे रचते रहते हैं, लेकिन उस लड़ाई को जीतने के लिए मेरे दिमाग में विषय साफ है। न गाली से समस्या सुलझने वाली है, न गोली से समस्या सुलझने वाली है। समस्या सुलझेगी हर कश्मीरी को गले लगा करके सुलझने वाली है। जम्मू कश्मीर का विकास, जम्मू कश्मीर की उन्नति, जम्मू कश्मीर के सामान्य नागरिक के सपनों को पूरा करने का प्रयास, ये जम्मू कश्मीर सरकार के साथ साथ हम देशवासियों का भी संकल्प है। फिर से एक बार इस स्वर्ग को हम अनुभव करें, उस स्थिति में लाने के लिए हम प्रतिबद्ध हैं, हम कटिबद्ध हैं।
So that was Prime Minister Modi there addressing and actually giving out his solution as to how the Kashmir issue can be solved, considering especially in the last few months, the situation in the Kashmir Valley has actually worsened. And Kartikeya, if I could bring you in on this, this was a very important message that he sent out. The separatists are only a handful of people, and the Kashmir issue can be solved by bringing the youth of Kashmir into the mainstream. And this is what he said that his government will be working towards. And just some time back, he'd also announced a package of 80,000 crore rupees to bring about development in the Kashmir Valley. Do you think he's saying the right things, and is all of that getting translated on the ground there?
Well, I would say for the Prime Minister to reach out to the Kashmiris and to say all these things is very, very important, because what's happening is the matter 35A has become sub judice.
True.
And it has already gone to the court. And the opposition and the government or the regional parties in Kashmir have come together on the issue of 35A. Now, if you look at the Article 370, Article 370 basically is a skeletal structure. You know, during the Congress regime, it was primarily hollowed out. So whatever remains is, you know, your Article 35A and couple of other things. For example, you know, you didn't even have the provision in the original Article 370 of even having election commission in Kashmir. So, you know, apart from 370, every other thing is out of 370. So I think some sort of a reassurance was required, and the Prime Minister has been very, I would say, generous in re-emphasizing the point that that the agenda will not allow to be hijacked by the separatists, but he does not believe in the fact that the military is the solution there. Issue is how much impact that will make.
That's an important
Kashmir.
point that he made. Na gali na goli. So it's not a military solution that he's referring to. He is talking about embracing the Kashmiris, bring the Kashmiris into the mainstream, and this is what will solve the Kashmir issue. Essentially, the Kashmiris must be made to feel that they are a part and parcel of India, and the development story of India is also a development story of the Kashmir Valley as well.
I would say that for me, even the takeaway, even if I leave aside the Kashmir issue, the sort of the cultural mining which the Prime Minister does in terms of rooting itself in a lot of, to use the word rustic, or to say the subaltern, or to say which you know, the cultural heritage of India. Like, for example, he says 75th anniversary of Quit India, 100th anniversary of Champaran Satyagraha, and 125th anniversary of Ganesh Utsav.
Absolutely.
Now, very few people would know that the Ganesh Utsav in itself was something which was conceived by Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So it was, if it was religious, it was also very, very political, because it was to organize people around a sacred space to talk about a political future.
Absolutely. It was during the political mobilization.
Yes,
it was the early days. This churning, 1892 is when he started off with the Ganesha festival, and subsequently he also came up with the Shivaji festival as well to try and draw in more people. And this is what Prime Minister Modi also drew on today.
So this is like blending of your cultural, political heritage, because you know you will not find him quoting Western historians. You will not find him quoting Western intellectuals. You'll always find him quoting people who, one can say, either represents the Indian cultural ethos or are directly connected with Indian cultural thought, religious cultural thought. You know, you can have your differences on it, but for example, Vivekanand, deeply influenced by him.
Absolutely.
You know, most of his quotes will come from there. So similarly, you know, when you, for example, see what did he say? From Sudarshan Chakradhari Mohan to Chakradhari Mohan, today we are celebrating both our cultural and historical heritage. This was not part and parcel of the previous prime ministers. Vajpayee was slightly more eclectic. He was more of a
more poetic. His discourses were of a different literary
and
taste altogether.
Despite the fact that he would draw from the same cultural heritage, but wouldn't use it that way. You know, he would put it, as you rightly said, more in the form of poetry, or his, you know, the style of delivering the speech. That was far more, I would say, exciting, or that would really mesmerize people. Here, Narendra Modi would use words like the way we discussed, gale, goli, gali, it's crafted, for a message, it's not a spontaneous speech. It's a crafted speech for a section, and in most of them, all the issues are addressed. For example, the Prime Minister addressed the issue of corruption. He addressed the issue of triple talaq. He addressed the issue of demonetization. He has addressed the issue of economy. He has addressed the issue of Northeast. But you can't say it was hyper-nationalist.
It was definitely not hyper-nationalist, because the mood of the nation was about celebrating Independence Day.
There is no word here in the speech where we could say, I think this was about Doklam. There is no word in the speech you could say, well, this is specifically about Pakistan, The references are there, but it's not a hyper-nationalist speech, There was
not even a direct reference even to Pakistan which was made.
Absolutely.
Although there was a provocation yesterday where Pakistani, the interim Prime Minister who's been sworn in, Abbasi, made a clear reference to India, saying that India is expansionist in this continent, and that is the reason as to why.
Baluchistan. There was a time when the Prime Minister openly started speaking about Baluchistan.
Balochistan, yes.
And it really created a problem. So the issue is that he has chosen to focus on issues directly concerned with the country.
And also let's
not go beyond that.
Right, let's also talk a bit about his fight against corruption, because this is what he's been talking about for the last several years now. He received a lot of flack over demonetization. What was essentially an economic decision has been debated on in very political terms. And he came out and said that, look, we've recognized as many as 3 lakh shell companies. We have deregistered as many as 2.75 lakh of these companies. Almost about 1.25 lakh crore of income, which was earlier considered as black money, that has now been brought into the mainstream. Where do you see this headed? Can we expect more such reforms? Or do you think, considering that the elections are perhaps another 18 months away,
I think
Prime Minister Modi would like to play safe?
On the lighter side, the answers which opposition sought from Arun Jaitley, I think the Prime Minister has given it from Red Fort. He has given them the quantum of, money which has gone back to the bank, because, every session, a lot of leaders would say, or even when...
it had almost become a bit of a joke. Why can't RBI count and give out a precise figure?
Absolutely. That was even a joke in the standing committees. So, people know that, how much money has been collected. So he has done the job for the RBI. But I would say that for me, really, the takeaway of his speech is that he has basically touched upon each and every issue. The speech looked more like an effort which does not give a message whereby there's a great polarized debate on it. Though he has touched upon certain issues which I would say has created a heated debate like triple talaq, but for the Prime Minister to speak about or address this issue is also...
To my mind, I think triple talaq is essentially a politically polarizing thing, because the masses, by and large, if you look at it, actually concur with the government. The Muslim masses believe with the fact that, triple talaq is something that is being raked up only perhaps for political mileage. Otherwise, reform within Muslim society is something which the Muslim society is actually very much open about. And even if there were to be a legislation to that effect, this is not exactly a very polarizing issue. How do you read that?
I would say that triple talaq did become an issue, and the sort of voting which took place in Uttar Pradesh, it went on to show that the women voted for Bharatiya Janata Party in UP on the issue of triple talaq. So suddenly triple talaq, which was reeling under the baggage of minority versus majority, acquired a gender axis. Even 35A, mind you,
we will discuss that.
Admitted to the court on the gender axis. So triple talaq and its verdict will be delivered and received on the gender axis.
Right, so I'm being told we'll have to take a break at this point of time. We'll come back and discuss more of this. But for the time being, though, we'll slip into a short break. We'll come back and dissect the Prime Minister's speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort on the other side of the short break. Stay tuned to WION.